about converting in metric. So you'll hear me talk a lot about how metric is a little bit easier than imperial, and this is why. The conversions are a little bit easier. So first, what do I mean when I say conversion? So in a measurement system, we can always convert, and by that I mean figure out how much of one unit is in another unit. So for example, if I wanted to find out if I had, say, 135 meters, right, and I want to know, well, how many centimeters would go into 135 meters? We can convert from 135 meters to centimeters. Since it's still a distance, we still could have measured all of those meters in centimeters, so we can use some math to prevent having to go out and measure it all again in a different unit. Okay? So before we do that question, let's take a look at how we actually do metric conversion. I'll show you my favorite way of doing it. Okay? So first thing is we have to, well, I'm going to draw out a staircase. You don't have to draw out a staircase every time. There's plenty of references online, but this is definitely the one that I use or something similar to it. Okay, so we're going to write 7 steps here. We're going to see if we can get to 7. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, why am I writing 7 steps? Well, because there's 7 big units in metric, or there's 7 prefixes that we like to use. Okay, so we've heard of millimeters, centimeters, meters, kilometers. Those prefixes, those things that come before the meter, are the things that we're writing here. So it turns out the smallest one that we usually deal with, there are smaller ones, much smaller ones, but the ones we usually deal with, the smallest is milli, like millimeter. Okay, up from that is centi, like centimeter. Now those are pretty common for us, but we also have ones that we haven't talked about yet, like deci for decimeter. Then we have our base unit, which is, a meter. But if we were using a different form of measurement, like volume, we might use a liter, right? Because you've heard of milliliters before. Turns out there's also deciliters and centiliters. We just don't use them very often. But back to meters. We go up from here, we get decameters, and up from that we get hectometers. Right, you see that one a lot in land, in area. And then finally, the big one up top is kilo. Okay? So the cool thing about metric is that each one of these prefixes is a certain power of 10. So what that means is it's a certain number that is divisible by 10 or multiplicable. So like kilo means 1,000. So when I say kilometers, I'm really saying 1,000 meters. Or centi, which means 1/100th. Right, so I really mean, this is 1 of 100 parts of a meter. So if I split up a meter into 100 pieces, each piece would be 1 centimeter. Okay? So this is all well and good, but how does the staircase help me, right? So here's how we use the staircase. Every time you want to go up the staircase, so if you're going up the staircase, you know what, that arrow is not. We're going to do that again. We're going to go up the staircase, make it a little bit simpler this time. We're going to divide. Okay, so going up the staircase, you're going to a larger unit, we're going to divide. If we're going down the staircase, if we're going to a smaller unit, we're going to multiply. And whenever we divide or multiply, and this is the part that makes metric so nice, it's just dividing and multiplying by 10 every time. Never have to use something different. So long as we know where we're starting and we know how many steps it takes to get up, we know what we have to do. Okay, so let's try an example or two. Okay, so coming back to the first example that we used, we want to take 135 meters. Let's say we take it to kilometers. Okay, so 135 meters to kilometers. So the first question we ask is, how many steps? So how many steps is that? So let's take a look here. Okay, so we're starting on meters, which is our base. So we're sitting right here. Here's us. Okay, and we're going up, looks like 1 step, 2 step, 3 step to get to kilometers. So we start with 135, and then for every step we divide by 10. So there's 1 step, 2 step, 3 step. Okay, so 135 divided by 10, then divided by 10, then divided by 10. If you put that in your calculator, you'll get 0.135 kilometers. See, once we get this set up, it's so easy to do, right? But we'll do it again so we can see it again. Okay, so let's go the other way. Say we take, let's start not on meters. Let's take 36. We'll take 36.5, so it's a nice decimal to play with here. And we'll take, let's say centimeters. Okay, and we want to turn that into millimeters. Okay, so then we're going to take 36.5 and figure out how many steps that is. So if we're on centimeters, we're going down just 1 step. Okay, so we do down, which is times, just 1 step, times 10, and we get 365 millimeters. And don't forget our units in here. That's all there is to it. So one thing to keep in mind when you're doing metric conversion, something to look out for, you see how we've got 135 here, and we've also got 135 here, just like we've got 365 here, and also 3, 6, and 5 right there. Okay, so all metric conversion does is it moves that number back and forth, either to a smaller decimal or to a larger number with more zeros behind it. Okay, so if this ever changes when you do the calculation, so if you were to take 135 and then it turns into, I don't know, 20 something, well, that doesn't make any sense if it's metric, so make sure your calculations are right when you do that. Okay, so using this, just to review, using this staircase, you can start at any of these units, then just count the steps, then either divide or multiply by 10 the number of steps you took, and you'll end up with your new unit answer.